We often hear people say, love your inner child, but how do you actually do that? In this episode, I am going to discuss how to love your inner child and why it is important. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, Season 4, where we are focusing on mastery. The last 3 seasons, I gave you the information. Now we're focusing on integrating it into our lives and embodying it. If you are ready to master your thoughts, emotions, and patterns to feel whole, fulfilled, and really grounded in who you are without dimming your shine so you can live the abundant life that you truly desire, then you are in the right place. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? M&Ms, I am going to be honest with you. I am all in my feels. I am all in my feelings today, and it makes sense as to why, because I felt really called to talk about loving your inner child. So I've realized that a lot of things trigger me. And what I've been doing is really dissecting my triggers and why I'm triggered in certain situations. And something triggered me yesterday, and I realized it comes from a core wound of constantly wanting nurturing and support and not so much validation, but I think validation is definitely a part of it. And when you have had critical or an absent parent, this is a pattern that shows up in your adult life. And one of the things that I realized, especially through therapy, so I shared in the last episode that my therapist kind of called me out in a loving way. Obviously, a good therapist is not going to enable you. They're going to bring your blind spots and your toxic patterns to your awareness so you can heal. So she called me out and she's just like, you're attracted to and you attract people that don't have the capacity to meet your needs. And I really sat with this and I was like, she's right. And so how do I start to shift this? And how do I start to notice where I am seeking some type of support or nurturing from someone who doesn't have the capacity to give it to me? And one of the things that I really had to realize with all of the inner work that I'm doing is a lot of people are not giving love and support and nurturing to themselves. So it's not about me. We're not taught how to nurture ourselves. And sometimes we're taught how to nurture ourselves on the surface, take yourself shopping. I used to do date night with self and all of these things that I thought was me loving myself on a whole nother level. And it's a part of it, 100% a part of it. So your self-care, like going to get a massage, going to the spa, taking yourself shopping, buying yourself something nice, getting your nails done, getting your hair done, doing things that makes you feel good. But all of that is external. All of that is surface. All of that is, I don't want to say superficial because that makes it sound negative, but those are all the things on the surface. But what about the internal? And I think that is the other half of it. So half of it is the massage and, taking a bubble bath and things like that. But there's another part of it to really soothe your inner child. And I'm someone where I love frameworks, like my brain operates in frameworks. So I'm like, okay, how do you love your inner child? And one thing that I found is this really beautiful meditation that I'm going to share in the show notes. So there's a link to a YouTube video that is this beautiful meditation. I want to recreate it because I'm like, ooh, this is so good. But before I recreate it, I want to listen to it daily. I listened to it twice today. It's a 30-minute meditation on loving your inner child. And she says, like, it's not your fault. And she says, like, you are worthy. I love you, and like, these are the words that we needed to hear when we were children. And it's not your fault, especially if you have an absent parent. Hearing that, like, I literally just got chills even just saying that, hearing that it's not your fault, because as children, we don't understand. We don't understand why a parent isn't around. And we feel we are not good enough for them to stick around. And we carry that with us throughout our lives. And then if we have a critical parent that always made us feel like it's us as to why things are happening the way that they're happening, and we have to be better and we have to be good enough, and they didn't provide that nurturing and that support. Like, you are amazing. Even if you don't, get straight A's, even if you don't get into this specific college, even if you don't, whatever the case may be, you're still enough and you're still amazing. And if you didn't have parents that said things like that to you, it creates this hole in your heart. To be honest, like, that's what it feels like, a hole in your heart, this emptiness that never seems to be filled. And we try to fill it with so many external things. And so I started noticing how this is showing up in my life, because I'm craving this support and this nurturing, and nothing seems to be filling this space. And I had to realize through all my inner work, through therapy, through my therapist pointing this out, I have to fill that space myself. There's nothing external that's going to fill it. I have to love and soothe and nurture my inner child. And that's going to start to end the vicious cycles of me constantly craving support and nurturing from others and filling it with different things that are just quick fixes. And so I realized, not nurturing my inner child internally was causing me some issues. I found myself being triggered and looking for people to care, and people who don't have to care, like in business, like I'm just like, how could this person not care? And realizing like, first of all, most people don't care for themselves on a deep level, so you can't expect them to care for you on a deep level. So that's one part of it. And the next part of it is not attaching so much of my self-worth to my business to where I'm expecting people in business, like business associates and business partners and clients and staff and employees, to like care about my personal feelings. So it's my responsibility to care about my personal feelings, but we're not taught how to nurture ourselves. So we're not taught how to do that to where we're not attaching our feelings to things that are not actually personal. And so another thing I realized is I was pushing people away. In my head, I'm just like, these are my needs, and if someone doesn't have the capacity to fulfill them, then they don't have to be in my life, allow them to fall away, which is part of it. So this is a yes and also understanding that it's not about me. And it's not, oh, this person doesn't want to fulfill my needs. Most people are not fulfilling their own needs. Most people are not loving themselves deeply. So me taking it personal, like, oh, well, if they cared about me, they would step up to the plate. That's a lot of ego. And it's also a protective part that is protecting my feelings, by going into ego, but realizing like, it's not about me. We're not taught as a society, and generationally, like our parents weren't taught how to love themselves because their parents weren't taught how to love themselves. So it's this vicious cycle that we have to choose to end. And we do that by truly loving ourselves internally as well as externally. So realizing like, yeah, some people are going to fall away when you start standing up for yourself and communicating your needs and desires, and also not taking it personally, because are they truly deeply loving themselves? And then also seeking affection in all the wrong places. So part of nurturing is physical affection, and I found myself engaging in physical situations with people that I shouldn't have, but I was craving some intimacy, you know? And so when we're in that space and we're not giving it to ourselves, we look for it externally, and it puts us in situations that really doesn't serve us. So one of the things that I had to do was take a good look at my go-to actions when I need nurturing. And we're not programmed to really connect to ourselves when we're in that space of like, I need nurturing, and be able to name it. So one of the things that I always say is, when you name it, it no longer has power over you. So, I mean, think about when have you ever heard someone say like, I really need nurturing? I mean, besides me. But, you know, obviously I've done a ton of inner work and therapy to get to the point to identify that within myself of like, okay, I need nurturing. But when do you ever hear someone say that? Like, I need nurturing. And I just did a really beautiful certification. So I have the trauma-informed sound therapy practitioner certification, and one of the people that attended was sharing a story about how she was devastated about something, and she was crying for 5 hours, and her friend asked her like, what do you need? And she's like, don't ask me any questions. I don't want to talk about it. I just want you to hold me while I cry. And she held that space for her. And I'm just like, how freaking beautiful is that? We as a society are programmed to try to fix, which, if you have listened to me about talking about Brene Brown's empathy misses, trying to fix is an empathy miss. It actually creates disconnection rather than connection. So sometimes what we need is someone really just to hold us as we cry, or hold us as we talk about whatever's going on. Hold us. Like, we need that physical intimacy. And I talked about how physical intimacy doesn't always equate to sexual intimacy. So you should have friends and family and, you know, people in your life that can literally just hold you and it not be a sexual thing. You know, friends should get in the habit, get comfortable with like affection, where like, you know, go to your friend and like have them wrap their arms around you. Like, it will do so much benefit to loving that inner child. And so what I had to realize is, what is my go-to action when I know that I need nurturing? And a lot of people these days, you know, definitely numb. They're numbing with drinking, smoking, drugs, video games, mindless scrolling on social media, and all different types of things. So my go-to would be first to try to find it from a friend. I'm just like, I sent so many messages, like all the challenges I went through the last few months, I sent so many messages to my friends like, hey, I need support. Here's a list of how you can support me. And, you know, it would last a day or two and then it would fall off. And I'm just like, sometimes we need consistent support as we're going through challenges. And I feel like life has just been a little harder than normal, like post-pandemic, and everyone afraid of the recession now. So like now that like COVID has kind of died down, now it's like fear of a recession, like all these types of things. Life is kind of hard right now. And it's important for us to really honor that, so we're showing up and really supporting each other on another level because of how challenging life is. So I would go and try to find it from friends. And then when they didn't have the capacity, so unfortunately, I don't have very nurturing friends. No offense to them, but we tend to attract people that are very much like us and have similar situations, and they probably had a critical or absent parent themselves, so like they may not know how to nurture me because they're not nurturing themselves. And then them not having the capacity to hold space for me in the way that I wanted and nurture me in the way that I wanted, it created disappointment, and that would only make me feel worse. So then my next thing would be to try to find it in dating, you know, looking for that nurturing and that intimacy in dating. But it's beyond just like the physical sex, you know, like sex is definitely not a bad thing, but I'm like looking to be held again, like that holding. So, okay, maybe if it's weird to have like a friend hold me, maybe I could have like someone I'm dating hold me, but then still looking for that nurturing, and I wasn't getting it. It still, again, created disappointment, which, only made me feel worse. So then I noticed I was craving ice cream and cheese. Ice cream is my weakness. Cheese is my weakness. Like, I can literally sit and eat a whole block of like brie cheese by myself. So, in my business, I look up like the emotional root causes of physical ailments, cravings, addictions, etc. And cheese and dairy, like dairy period, so ice cream and cheese, are your body's way of communicating to you that you are craving nurturing, like that motherly love. Like when mothers breastfeed, like that milk, it's basically an adult version of craving nurturing. You're craving that like motherly nurturing, that motherly love. And so it shows up as craving ice cream or cheese. And I freaking love cheese and I love ice cream. But one thing I realized is like dairy doesn't necessarily agree the best with my body. So usually the next day I have like a lot of mucus and I'm just like, ugh, like I don't want to sit and eat a whole block of brie cheese. Everything in moderation. A scoop of ice cream is fine. A pint of ice cream, it's an issue. A slice of brie cheese is fine, but a whole block of brie cheese, it's an issue. So I'm definitely someone who, like, I choose not to drink when I feel sad or when I need nurturing, because that's when addictions start, So if I do have a glass of wine, or if I do have a drink because I'm going out with friends, or if I have a glass of wine with dinner, it's always in a space where I'm like, ooh, I have this really nice dinner. I'm going to have a glass of wine because the wine will pair really nicely, or I'm celebrating a successful week or successful day, whatever the case may be. So I choose not to drink when I'm feeling bad, so it doesn't turn into me numbing my feelings. But I realize, emotional eating is very similar. It's just not as many toxins, like drinking alcohol it's toxins in your body. So emotional eating can be an issue, but, having some ice cream here or there is not a horrible thing. It's just everything in moderation. So I'm like, how can I give myself love and nurturing when I know I'm going down this rabbit hole of like, I need some love, I need some affection, I need some support? Because all of the things that I was doing, I thought, oh, I'm a better communicator because I've done all this work on emotional intelligence and vulnerability and all the things. So I'll just communicate to the people in my life what I need and what I desire. And then when that wasn't working, I'm sitting here scratching my head like, I thought this was the solution. And now I'm finding, so it's a yes and, like, you definitely want to communicate your needs and desires to the people in your life. And also realize when they don't have the capacity to provide those needs and desires. And a lot of times in today's society, people are not providing their own needs and desires or honoring their own needs and desires, so they really don't have the space to honor yours. Some people do, but some people don't. So really assessing that and not taking it personally. And the not taking it personally part is like what I've been really trying to integrate in my life. So I'm just like, okay, well, if I have to give myself this love and support and nurturing, like, how do I actually do that? And I know what I've been doing lately, but I feel like I needed more. So I definitely in the past have done all of the external things like date night with self, freaking taking myself to the spa, the bubble bath, lighting candles and going shopping, getting a new pair of Louboutins, and like those are all external things that have been good, but there was still another piece. So recently I've been setting really good healthy boundaries, and mostly in my business. So I feel like I have really good boundaries in my personal life, but I didn't have that great of boundaries in my business. And really setting healthy business boundaries and communicating with my different parts. So my parts that wanted different things. Like, have you ever had a moment where you're like, okay, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that? Like, really getting crystal clear, okay, the part of me that wants to do this, why do you want to do this, and what's the desired outcome? The other part of me that wants to do this, why do you want to do this, and what's the desired outcome? And and then like finding a happy medium between the two. That's really helped me. And buying myself flowers. So I got to a point where I was like, I don't like flowers, but it was a protector part that was protecting the very sensitive part of me. And I'm just like, I need to connect with that very sensitive part of me. So the flowers is something that helps with that, and like helps like my inner child, like hopeless romantic. I already told you in a previous episode, it is like a rom-com in my brain. Like, that's my inner child that just thinks that like everything's magical and my knight in shining armor is going to swoop in and sweep me off my feet and I'm going to live happily ever after. Like, that's how it works in my brain. That is my inner child. So buying myself flowers is just a way to like cater to that hopeless romantic inside of me. And then that inner child meditation that I shared with you, the words of just saying like, it's not your fault, I love you, like, those are things I needed to hear as a child. And of course, didn't hear it, but hearing it now and like really creating space to like let that sink into my being so my inner child feels it has been really powerful. And being really gentle with myself. So this is really important. So self-acceptance, no self-judgment, no self-criticism. And when I say no, like shutting it down when I find myself being super hard on myself, shutting it down when I start feeling shame around something, like shutting the self-criticism and the self-judgment down. So, a lot of people have negative self-talk, but we can't just say like, okay, I'm not going to say anything negative about myself. It's going to be a process. You have to first identify when you're doing it, then make the choice to shut it down, and then replace it with something beautiful. And eventually, if you do that enough, you'll stop saying the negative things. But it's definitely a process. So being really patient with myself, catching myself where I'm over-explaining. Over-explaining is a trauma response. Noticing where I'm triggered because I want someone to care. The more that I care for myself, the more that I'm looking for that care externally. So really noticing like when I'm triggered because I'm looking for this person to care. And so just really paying attention to the patterns that, we're contributing to the pain and the disappointment and the suffering and the resentment. So paying attention to it. And then I'm like, okay, what does the internet say? What does the internet say of how do you love your inner child? And here are some things that I found on the internet. So giving yourself a self-massage, like this is that self-soothing, like physical intimacy to yourself. So like self-massage, get some like body oil and rub out your muscles. And we store so many emotions in the different parts of our bodies. Obviously, I talk about that with my sound therapy all the time. So massaging your calves, massaging your arms, like when you put lotion on your hands, like really taking your time and like massaging out like your fingers and your hands and hugging yourself. It may sound silly, but like try it. Wrapping yourself in a blanket. I love anytime I do laundry and I like wash my blanket and when it's like fresh out the dryer and it's warm, I love to just like wrap myself in a warm blanket, and it's like the most yummy feeling to me. So it's just that self-soothing. So how can you self-soothe yourself today? Do it today. And then yoga. So movement to move emotions through your body is really good. Sometimes we have things that are stuck in our body. And obviously with my sound therapy and my new healing modality, somatic sound therapy, somatics is all about that connection with your body and identifying what's stuck in your body. And you do that through movement, or something like sound therapy where you have bowls on the body. So really doing something to identify and move the sensations and feelings and emotions in your body. A warm bubble bath. So definitely bubbles, because obviously children, like our inner child, our inner kiddo, my business therapist calls it inner kiddo. Our inner kiddos loves bubbles. Like, what child didn't love bubbles? So warm bubble bath with just lots of bubbles. And it may be weird for guys, but I'm just like, try it. Guys have inner kiddos too that are hurt, and honestly, sometimes I feel like men had it, I don't want to say men had it worse, but men had it bad, like it's easier for a little girl to be accepted if she's crying. But for a boy, it's like, suck it up, be a man. Men don't cry. So men probably have it worse, Take a moment and take a bubble bath and see how that feels to you. Like, I want to hear from guys. Like, do you take bubble baths? Do you do anything to love your inner child? Because I think society conditions men to think like something like a bubble bath is feminine. And yeah, I've never heard of a guy taking a bubble bath, but men have inner kiddos too that need nurturing as well. So I would love to hear from a man about this. Be creative. Play, do something silly. So children are silly, children are playful and creative. Like, tap into that side of you to really connect with your inner child. And then meditation. So obviously sound therapy, I'm biased, but somatic sound therapy can really help you get to what may be stored in your body. But even just listening to a meditation, I am putting that meditation that I mentioned in the show notes. Like, it's 30 minutes. It's an inner child meditation. It's so beautiful. Like, if you do this every single day, imagine how it'll change your life. Imagine how loved your inner child will feel. And that's going to reflect in everything externally. And then intimacy. So obviously, sex is amazing with the right person, safely. And then you still have just like hugs and cuddles, like cuddle with a friend and have it be not a sexual thing. Like, we need that physical contact. And there's a lot of people, like, my family wasn't affectionate. Like, they weren't affectionate at all. Like, they didn't hug and, like hold each other. And I'm also from New York, so it's not just like my family. It's just, New Yorkers are a little rougher around the edges. But hug someone, give them a nice, long, yummy, squishy hug, and like cuddle with some friends, cuddle with family, like cuddle, and see how that soothes your inner child and fills your cup. And, if you are in a relationship, being willing to express to your partner, like, I need a hug, I need some cuddles, I need some nurturing, I need some loving right now. And like not have loving just be sex. I mean, obviously sex is, a bonus, but really just being held. That's going to nurture that inner child. And then the last thing is a pet. So it's definitely proven that, pets offer emotional support and things like that. I actually tried to purchase a puppy recently, and I found one that, was in my price range, because I did just expand my business, and it turned out to be a scam, and it was really, really, really hard for me. Like, I was pretty devastated, because, I shared it's been a year since Diva transitioning. So that's been really hard for me. So I've definitely been looking into getting another pet, but with me expanding my business, it's going to have to wait. But pets are amazing because they give so much unconditional love. So, love on your fur babies a little extra. And if you don't have a fur baby, go get one. I specifically want a Yorkie. So, there's obviously options to adopt a pet, but I want a Yorkie. And most Yorkies, like, if they do find a Yorkie in like an adoption place or like a rescue place, they go so fast because there's waiting lists of people waiting for those types of breeds. So I just want to wrap it up by saying, if we consistently seek nurturing externally, we will stay in a vicious cycle of seeking disappointment. To break that cycle, we first must give that love and nurturing and support to ourselves. And we're not taught how to nurture ourselves. So that's why I started this dialogue. That's why I had this podcast episode, because we're not taught how to do this for ourselves. And then when we don't nurture ourselves, we don't know how to nurture others. So when someone does come to us and say, hey, I need support, we don't know how. Brene Brown says compassion and empathy are learned skills. So if you're like, I'm not really a nurturing person, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to hold space, cuddling with my friends is going to feel really freaking awkward, like, that's okay. It's okay, because it's probably going to be awkward for everyone until they get used to it. When you first try anything, it feels weird. But like, let's take the gym, for example. When you first go to the gym and you're using new equipment or you're working out a new muscle, it's going to feel a little weird, right? But then the more you practice it, the more you become stronger and it becomes easier, and the better it is for your body. So it's kind of like that. Like, practice cuddling. May feel weird at first, but when you start to realize like how soothing it is, you'll see the benefits. And same thing with working out. When you start to see the benefits of working out, you're like, ooh, I really like this, So I would love to hear your feedback. Let me know how this lands. Let me know your biggest takeaway. I love hearing from you, Eminem. So message me on Instagram at Niajae. Go listen to that inner child meditation that the YouTube link is in the show notes. Listen to it every day for like a week, and then come back and tell me how it's helped you. And do some of these things to really nurture yourself, because we need it. We need it. And, I consider myself a very confident person, but no matter how confident you are, you still need nurturing. And no matter how independent you think you are, no matter how tough you think you are, if you're a man, there's some women that think they're tough too, we still need nurturing, and we still have to love on our inner child. So what can you do today to love on your inner child? All right, M&Ms, until next time, be decadent.
Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.